Celestial greetings, dear viewers, and welcome to another enlightening episode of Women of the Stars. I'm Sanjay, your guide through the cosmic wonders and the intricacies of our inner worlds. Today, we're delving into a fascinating and crucial topic, the Fawn Response. This response is one of the 4 primary trauma responses identified by psychologists, alongside the well-known fight, flight, and freeze responses. Understanding the Fawn Response. The Fawn Response is characterized by people-pleasing behaviors and attempts to appease or pacify others to avoid conflict, threat, or harm. It often develops as a coping mechanism in individuals who have experienced trauma, particularly in situations where they felt powerless or dependent on others for their safety. Characteristics of the Fawn Response. People-pleasing. The primary characteristic of the Fawn Response is an excessive desire to please others, often at the expense of one's own needs and boundaries. This behavior is driven by a fear of conflict or rejection. Over-accommodation. Individuals exhibiting the Fawn Response may go out of their way to accommodate others, frequently saying yes, even when it is inconvenient or harmful to themselves. Difficulty. Saying no. Those with a Fawn Response may struggle to assert themselves or set boundaries, fearing that saying no will lead to negative consequences or rejection. Avoiding conflict. A significant aspect of the Fawn Response is the avoidance of conflict. Individuals may agree with others or avoid expressing their own opinions to maintain peace and avoid confrontation. Hyper-attunement to others' needs. People with a Fawn Response are often highly attuned to the emotions and needs of others, sometimes to the point of neglecting their own well-being. This hyper-attunement can be a way to anticipate and prevent potential threats or conflicts. Origins of the Fawn Response. The Fawn Response typically develops in childhood as a survival mechanism in response to a threatening or abusive environment. It is often seen in individuals who grew up in households where they experienced emotional or physical abuse. Children in abusive environments may learn to appease their abusers to minimize harm or avoid punishment. Neglect. In situations where caregivers were neglectful or emotionally unavailable, children might develop people-pleasing behaviors to gain attention and care. Unpredictable environments. Inconsistency and unpredictability in a child's environment can lead them to fawn as a way to create some sense of stability and predictability by controlling the reactions of those around them. Effects of the Fawn Response. While the Fawn Response can be a temporary survival mechanism, it can have long-term negative effects on an individual's mental health and well-being, including loss of self-identity. Constantly prioritizing others' needs over one's own can lead to a loss of self-identity and difficulty understanding one's own desires and preferences. Burnout and resentment. Overextending oneself to please others can result in burnout and feelings of resentment, particularly if the effort is not reciprocated or appreciated. Chronic anxiety. The perpetual fear of conflict and rejection can contribute to chronic anxiety and stress. Healing from the Fawn Response. Recovery from the Fawn Response involves building self-awareness and developing healthier coping mechanisms. Key steps include therapy. Working with a therapist can help individuals understand the origins of their Fawn Response and develop strategies to set healthy boundaries and prioritize their own needs. Self-compassion. Cultivating self-compassion and self-acceptance is crucial in overcoming the fear of rejection and learning to value one's own needs and desires. Boundary setting. Learning to set and maintain boundaries is essential for reducing people-pleasing behaviors and fostering healthier relationships. Mindfulness practices. Mindfulness and self-reflection can help individuals recognize when they are falling into fawn behaviors and choose more assertive and self-respecting actions. Correlation with fight or flight situations. In a typical fight or flight situation, the body's sympathetic nervous system is activated in response to a perceived threat. This leads to a series of physiological changes, such as increased heart rate, heightened alertness, and a surge of adrenaline, preparing the individual to either confront or escape the danger. The Fawn Response, although less discussed, is also a survival strategy, but it involves a different approach to managing the threat. Fight-response correlation. Fight. The individual perceives a threat and chooses to confront it head-on. This is characterized by aggressive or assertive behavior aimed at neutralizing the danger. Fawn. Instead of confrontation, The fawn response involves trying to reduce the threat through appeasement. This can involve agreeing with the aggressor, showing excessive kindness, or displaying submissive behavior to avoid escalation. Flight response correlation. Flight. The individual attempts to escape the threat. This might involve physically leaving the situation or avoiding it altogether. Fawn. In situations where escape is not possible or practical, the fawn response serves as a way to mitigate danger by making oneself less of a target. By placating the aggressor, the individual hopes to avoid further harm. Freeze response correlation. Freeze. The individual becomes immobile, hoping that the lack of movement will make the threat lose interest or go away. Fawn. While the freeze response involves inaction, the fawn response is about active submission. By being compliant and agreeable, the person aims to diffuse the threat through non-confrontational means. Practical examples: domestic abuse, fight, arguing or physically defending oneself against the abuser. Flight, leaving the home or relationship. Freeze, becoming silent or passive during an abusive episode. Fawn, trying to calm the abuser by being overly accommodating, apologizing, or trying to keep them happy to avoid further abuse. Workplace conflict. Fight, confronting a bullying co-worker or boss directly. Flight, avoiding the bully, perhaps by calling in sick or asking for a transfer. Freeze, shutting down and not participating in meetings where the bully is present. Fawn, agreeing with the bully's opinions, doing extra work to gain their approval, or trying to be overly helpful to avoid being targeted. Physiological and psychological impact. Fight and flight responses involve heightened physical readiness, preparing the body to take immediate action. Freeze response often involves a numbing or dissociative reaction with a sense of being stuck or paralyzed. Fawn response involves psychological strategies of appeasement, which can lead to chronic stress and anxiety due to the constant need to please others and the suppression of one's own needs and desires. Healing from the fawn response. Addressing and healing from the fawn response involves therapy, working with a therapist to understand the origins of the fawn response and develop healthier coping mechanisms. Boundary setting, learning to set and maintain boundaries, recognizing that it's okay to say no. Self-compassion, practicing self-compassion and self-care, prioritizing one's own needs and well-being. Assertiveness training, building assertiveness skills to express one's own opinions and desires without fear of conflict. Understanding the fawn response within the context of the other trauma responses helps individuals recognize their coping patterns and work towards healthier, more balanced reactions to stress and conflict. Thank you for joining us on Women of the Stars. May the celestial energies guide you on your journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Until next time, stay enlightened and stay inspired.